Welcome to today's episode of Print to Pixel, the podcast where we talk to marketing leaders and technologists about how omnichannel marketing is revolutionizing the way that direct mail and digital marketing are used together. My name is Dennis Kelly. I'm the CEO of Postalytics, the leading direct mail automation platform that makes direct mail marketing as easy as email. I'm excited today to introduce Hannah Lee. Hannah is the CEO of Second Mile Marketing, a revenue operations agency based in Knoxville, Tennessee. Their mission is to help companies improve the work week and scale smarter by reinventing culture, integrating systems, and aligning processes. They're HubSpot and WordPress experts who are passionate about breaking down the silos between marketing, sales, service, and operations to accelerate an organization's growth. Hannah's had a really interesting career spanning several different roles, from nonprofit donor engagement, copywriting, account management, business development, and finally co-founding her own agency. Hannah, welcome to Print to Pixel.
Dennis, that was fantastic. Appreciate it.
Well, looking at your background, it's super impressive. You've started your own agency. That's a big leap, as I think anybody can imagine. What were the things that influenced you in your career to say, hey, I'm going to go off on my own and take a risk and start up this agency? So tell us about that, your career path and those big influences that kind of pushed you to do this.
Yeah, I mean, looking back on it, I think there's always a component of saying, hey, I want things to be different. And I think for myself and my co-founder, Jess, so we met each other playing college lacrosse. And, that's a fantastic way to vet out if someone's going to be in the trenches with you. I mean, we were literally competing together and really got to kind of test out each other's character. What does it look like when you win? What does it look like when you lose? Who are you on and off the field? And really had built up such a great foundation of trust that we didn't know would, ultimately serve us in the long run as business partners. And so really so much of my career journey comes from, I totally stand on the shoulders of some giants, my co-founder included, we looked at each other. She was freelancing, I was freelancing, and, we both would have a glass of wine and be like, oh, could we start this? Could we do that? And then the next morning, Google, oh, there's, that idea already exists. And for some reason, when we Googled, or when we woke up the next day and we're like, oh, maybe we could start a marketing agency, the other millions of agencies out there did not deter us. So there's quite a few, but I think that was really where we were like, hey, we had both been in the agency world for quite a while and just kind of seen, you're billing by the 15 minutes of an email. Someone's just, a project code in the system. And we were like, we really want to establish those relationships. At the time when we started the agency, it was either a freelancer with a laptop that you had this great relationship with, but maybe you weren't able to, kind of push things to the next level and see those results and then kind of have that data focus. Or you had to go to a massive agency where, you're just, a project code. And we were like, is there a way where we can kind of strike the balance between those two things? And so for us at Second Mile, from the very beginning, it was, hey, we want to be driven by relationships, but focused on results. And that was kind of what made us say, let's try this. Let's see if we can actually achieve this kind of best of both worlds. And, here we are 8 years later and things look really different, but that's still just so much of the guiding principle for us. So yeah, it was kind of two best friends with a crazy idea and very much supported by, friends, family, community, people in our network. And we've been really fortunate.
I would say so. I think that you had a familiarity with the agency world. You probably saw things that you liked from an operational standpoint, things you didn't like, and you've been able to, I'm sure, implement a lot of the principles that have led you to success on the athletic field, right? And in the early parts of your career as well.
Yeah, definitely. Playing college sports is a really great, gives you so many like life lessons and about teamwork and dedication and, you know, how to be resilient. So thankful for that. And it definitely is very much a part of course, Jess and I, and then kind of has trickled into the rest of our culture as well.
Awesome. That's great stuff. We can go talk about that forever. But let's zero in a little bit on this notion of revenue operations. I think that for people that spend a lot of time in the CRM and marketing automation worlds, that's a fairly common phrase. But I think in the general business world, that's not really a well understood concept. I think it's fairly new. So tell us, what does revenue operations really mean? And then at a broad level, and then, drill down a little bit, how do you apply the notion of revenue ops in, the day-to-day work that you do for your clients?
Yeah. So for us, revenue operations is just breaking down the silos between marketing, sales, customer service, and operations to make a business as efficient and effective as possible. And kind of how that happens is you align the people, processes, and platforms that are kind of the guiding forces in that organization. And so everything is as aligned and integrated as possible. And I mean, that might sound really simple in theory, but in practice, a lot of business operations are really disjointed. And marketing has its own initiatives, sales has its own initiatives, customer service is trying to do something. And it's really, from an ideological perspective, saying, hey, we're all working towards the same mission. And that's to serve and solve for the customer. And so how do we make that handoff between marketing and sales as smooth as possible? How do we use data to make sure that happens, right? And so much of it is about staying kind of in lockstep together as an organization and saying we're all working towards the same end, which is solving for the customer. And we're also, trying to be as effective as we possibly can in doing that. And yeah, you'd be surprised. I think especially given the way that technology has shifted and evolved over time, people are using legacy systems. They're using, sales is using one tool and customer service is using a different platform, and those things aren't talking to each other. And so it's a pretty manual process, or things slip through the cracks if they're not integrated. And so it's really saying, how do we bring all of that together to be, as powerful as possible and really drive that business growth? Because as the business is more efficient and effective, as customers feel more seen and heard and communicated with, you really start to kind of get that momentum going. You're able to do things like upsells and cross sells and reduce churn and all that great stuff. So yeah, it's a really powerful concept that I think, unfortunately, it kind of gets taken for granted. People are like, of course, we're one company, we're all doing the same things. And it's like the different functions of the business tend to have different people, different platforms, and different processes. And that can really create a pretty disjointed experience internally and externally.
I think that anybody who has sat at an executive level would agree with you. And as they look across their operation and they see different systems with different data schemas and different, concepts embedded in those schemas, that and the data is not able to easily flow from one system to the next, it can be really daunting. So I think you're definitely onto something. We've connected specifically with Postalytics and Second Mile through our common work in the fiber broadband sector. And so why don't we drill in a little bit more there into some of the key challenges that you see the broadband operators facing, and then how do you tailor the revenue ops to help solve some of those challenges and streamline those operations and get that data flowing the way that it should?
Yeah, so it's been really great working with you all with our fiber partners. I think the exciting thing about fiber is, it's very much a focus in terms of, making sure that everyone in America has access to great internet. So in terms of a mission, wonderful place to be in. I think some of the challenges that the fiber space specifically is seeing is there is so much growth and it's happening really quickly. And as a result of that, these fiber partners are scaling fast, or they want to scale fast. And, the people, processes, and platforms aren't keeping pace with that a lot of times. Or they're saying, hey, I need something that's more advanced that's going to take us to the next level because of the direction we want to go in. And so we really have to focus in on the processes you used to have aren't serving you anymore. The platforms you used to have aren't serving you anymore. How do we get all these people in your organization aligned around using those things? And specifically, the challenge that we're seeing in the fiber space is, lack of a central point of truth when it comes to data. And then when that happens, you can't automate and integrate effectively. So those are kind of the main things that we're helping our fiber partners solve for is let's get a central point of truth so you can be data driven, what's working, what's not working. And, long gone are the days where you can't send the right message to the right customer. Like, customers turn over their information to you and they expect you to communicate with them accordingly. And so, you have to be really specific in a competitive fiber market. And we need clean, centralized data to be able to effectively market, sell, retain, upsell those customers. And yeah, it's a fun place to be in.
Yeah, I certainly see that, and I think that clean data and that central organizing data set that is the truth it sounds obvious, right? But it's really hard. It's really hard to do, and it forces an organization to go through some critical decisions, right? To kind of agree on what those organizing data principles are. I certainly see it inside of Postalytics. You can't really scale all that well unless you get that data really clean, and then automation can do so much, right? Once you've got that clean data.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's so much of the benefit of what you all have to offer is, hey, once that data structure is in place, I mean, the great thing is it can be really easy to start automating, but, very few organizations or people want to do the work to take, a step back and really focus on data architecture, integrations, data hygiene and cleanliness, right? That's not the fun, cool stuff. Automations and A/B testing, that's where everybody wants to spend the time and energy. But and then even a step farther back from that is what is the process in which we gather data and how is it stored, and what data is important, because not all data is valuable. A lot of people, especially sales folks, are like, hey, I don't have time to sit here and collect 17 data points on this sales call. So yeah, taking that first step back in terms of process and then thinking about data architecture, data hygiene, and then you can do the really fun, cool stuff. But that's easier said than done for sure.
Absolutely. And so where that data resides can be very different in different environments. I know that HubSpot is one of the platforms that Second Mile focuses your work on. Tell the audience, what do you like about HubSpot, and why is it a good fit for customers and fiber broadband customers specifically?
Yeah, I think one of the reasons that we kind of went down the HubSpot path as we were evaluating different platforms that we could become a partner in is HubSpot really has a focus on engineering everything themselves. So the phrase they like to use and we like to use is, it's crafted, not cobbled. So they're not acquiring a bunch of different platforms and trying to kind of, Frankenstein it together. They're really focused on product development. And so inside of HubSpot, you have the CRM that guides everything, right? Like that's the central point of truth. And then you can use that to use the HubSpot marketing engine, sales engine, the customer service engine, and now, a lot of automation and data hygiene engines as well. So that's one of my favorite things about HubSpot is like the interface stays consistent, which is really great for the end user. But then, every single thing that's developed inside of HubSpot is HubSpot. It's not some type of acquisition of a product and kind of trying to like fit it into the platform. So yeah, that's kind of why we like HubSpot, and it plays really well with other platforms, right? The tech stack is a huge part of any business being successful. And so HubSpot can reduce a lot of technical debt, which is one of our favorite things for organizations, especially in the fiber space. Like how do we reduce your technical debt, which is, how many platforms you're using, how much you're paying for those platforms. So we love that about HubSpot, but HubSpot's not going to be the end all be all solution. And so when we do need to bring in other platforms, the ability to do bidirectional data syncs, and, automatically push that information back and forth between the systems is fantastic. There's a lot of legacy tools out there that don't want to play nicely with others and kind of hold organizations hostage to that platform. And an organization has got to be able to be nimble when it comes to tech stack. So that's a big win for us when it comes to helping people migrate or optimize their HubSpot experience.
Yeah. I think, what we've observed in working with HubSpot very closely for the last 8 years also is that their ability to solve different types of business problems has grown dramatically. And,
Definitely.
they've added more hubs, right? And so that's one part of it. But also their underlying infrastructure has grown, right? They've added custom objects. So now you're not really stuck with kind of their vision of how data ought to live and how it ought to work, right? You can build completely custom things. And
exactly, which is so great, especially in the fiber space where their data architecture is address driven, household driven, right?
Right, exactly. And prior to that, this was really the world of Salesforce only, right? And kind of Salesforce had that very malleable data architecture that folks could do a lot of things with. And the other thing that we're observing is that the number of the flexibility of and the power of the number of their API infrastructure has exploded.
Exactly.
And so we connect through APIs, and it's like night and day compared to where it was a few years ago.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, and I think HubSpot is really saying, "Hey, we're going to be great at, our core functions, and then really leveraging, app partners like Postalytics to say, hey, we want you." The HubSpot becomes stickier and more powerful the more integrated and connected it is. And so being able to say, hey, HubSpot's like, we're not going to be a direct mail platform, but we are going to, have the ability to integrate and automate within a direct mail platform. And so, yeah, that's really where you start to see kind of the power. And then, and by the way, you have this app partner over here, Postalytics, and you can also work with a solutions partner to help you engineer how all of this comes together. And I think that's where HubSpot's really been successful when it comes to kind of their partner program and that ability to say, all boats rise with the tide type of situation.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we've certainly experienced that. Drilling in a little bit further into direct mail and it not living inside of HubSpot, our audience is very focused on omnichannel marketing. And that's kind of at the core of this podcast, with the notion that data ought to be able to drive marketing channels that are both online and offline, And so let's talk about HubSpot specifically, and how HubSpot can drive omnichannel campaigns that use direct mail and then other channels like email and digital.
Yeah, I think that's one of our favorite things in terms of the marketing side, specifically when it comes to HubSpot, is that multi-touch attribution capabilities within the platform. So, if you're not I always tell people you have to have an omni-channel approach, in the sense of you should not be beholden to any platform specifically, right? Like, one, first-party data is key. Two, omni-channel, like those two things, right? We can't have our entire marketing strategy hinge on Facebook, because the powers that be at any given moment can say you're not allowed to do this anymore. And so, or we're going to make it, too expensive for you to play here. So omni-channel is key, one, from just kind of like diversifying your portfolio, if you're thinking about it in those terms. And then two, having first party data is absolutely critical, because as we're seeing, the focus continues, with privacy laws and kind of restrictions there. First party data is key. So when you have a tool like HubSpot, where you can have first party data and omni-channel all in one centralized platform and see what's working, what's not working, how people are converting, which channels, which messages, that's crucial, right? Like, the great thing about HubSpot is it did start as a marketing platform. And so really the marketing tools are super robust. You have the ability to create and manage content, see how that content's performing, personalize that content based off of the data, right? So someone can come to a landing page that has, they're seeing information that specifically resonates with their pain points based off of, custom properties and the data that you have on them. So really, really powerful tool. And then you can integrate all of that together to make sure that your campaigns are as effective as possible across multiple touch points: direct mail, SMS, email, also empowering your sales team to be able to see how a customer is engaging with those things, so that when they do make some outreach, they're not doing just a generic sales message. Like, long gone are the days where that's going to work, right? Especially if someone's like, hey, I've been engaging with your content for, 4 or 5 months now. We should be having a totally different type of conversation once we get to that sales qualified lead. So yeah, those are, I could nerd out way longer about this. I just realized I was starting to get a little fired up, but yeah, it's fun stuff.
Yeah, that's what it's about. We nerd out about marketing tech here. So you're in a safe space, very safe.
Awesome. Whew, I feel better now. Okay, good.
Well, I hadn't really thought about the notion of kind of single point of failure in your marketing as a tenet of omnichannel. My frame of reference has been more around, hey, I'm seeing the same basic messaging in different parts of my experience, right? Online and offline. And that is a core tenet. However, as a business owner, I don't want all of my eggs in one basket, particularly a basket that I don't control.
Exactly. Yeah. Right? That's what's really scary, is like, if your entire business model is built around, Instagram, that's going to be a tough gig if something happens, right? Like, we don't want to, project doom and gloom, but it's, as a business owner, and your entire marketing strategy hinges on things that you don't control, it's a pretty risky business.
And on top of that, as you said, right, first party data means you own the data, as opposed to some platform that is using that data for their own purposes, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And so I'd much rather be in control of my own data and leverage that data for the marketing and sales of my products.
Exactly.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I think as you had said, I think you and I could nerd out about this stuff for a very long time. But as we come to a close, I guess if our audience is interested in talking to you, talking to Second Mile, learning more about revenue ops, how you can apply it into HubSpot, what you're doing specifically in the fiber broadband world, how would the audience best find you?
Yeah, so you can always find us at thesecondmile.com. I'm really active on LinkedIn, so feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, Hannah Collins Lee. And then you can always connect with us on LinkedIn as well, Second Mile on LinkedIn. So I'd say those are kind of the main places to learn more, connect with us. Always happy to have a conversation and kind of talk about some of these fun, marketing nerdy things.
Awesome. Who would have thought that marketing would get so nerdy? It's truly an amazing transformation that's happened.
Exactly. Yeah, we definitely view ourselves as kind of the marketing ops people behind the scenes, long gone, or at least for us, we're not the Mad Men folks that are coming up with the really cool campaigns. I admire those people tremendously. My brain doesn't work that way. But then we get to kind of take all their great stuff and like push it out into the world, which is fun.
Absolutely. Great. Well, Hannah Lee, Second Mile Agency, thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure. Thanks for joining us on Print to Pixel. And audience, go check Hannah out at Second Mile.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me.